I fear not the dark itself, but what may lurk within it. Welcome to Lurk, bringing you creepy, strange, and bone-chilling stories, with your hosts, Tim Harrison and Jamie Jackson.
Hey, Lurkers, it's Jamie.
Tim. So, anyways, that was a good intro. I don't care anyone says.
Okay.
My voice has this echoing thing that goes with it. Anyways, what are we talking about today?
Today we're going to talk about the Bell Witch.
It's a bell that rings, right?
No.
What is it then?
It was a haunting in Tennessee in the 1800s.
It's like the haunting in Connecticut.
But not in Connecticut and not the same kind of haunting.
I'm swinging for the fences here, ain't I?
I don't know, I guess.
That's hurtful. So, Jamie,
Yes.
The Bell Witch is what exactly?
The greatest American ghost story. Or America's greatest ghost story. Either way, it's the greatest ghost story of America. 1804, the Bell family. I don't even want to read from these anymore because you make fun of me. And I don't think I can do it from memory today because my brain hurts.
Welcome to my life.
1804, the Bell family moved from North Carolina to Robertson County, Tennessee, which was along the Red River in what is now the town of Adams. When they moved, the family consisted of John Bell Sr., his wife Lucy, and 5 kids: Jesse, John Jr., Drury, Benjamin, Esther, and Zadok.
What?
Zadok.
How do you spell that?
Zadok.
Okay.
Okay.
That's unique.
And then after they moved in 1804, they ended up having 3 more children when they were in Tennessee. Elizabeth, who they called Betsey, Richard, who went by the name Williams, and Joel.
Richard didn't go by Dick?
No, he went by Williams, which I think was his middle name.
Richard Dick Williams. Bell.
Whatever. The farm that they had purchased in Tennessee was around 320 acres, and they were well off, had a good life, lived there for 13 years, and then 13 years, that's kind of when things started to go crazy. Before it got crazy, they were members of the Red River Baptist Church. John Bell was a deacon there at the church. So very respected members of the family at the time. Rich.
What's a deacon?
A member of the church? I don't know. Let me look it up for you. Let's see. A deacon, an ordained minister of an order ranking below that of priest.
So he's a step below a priest?
A lay officer appointed to assist a minister, especially in secular affairs. Okay, so basically, you'd have your pastor, because it wouldn't be a priest because this is a Baptist church. So you'd have like your pastor, or reverend, and then you'd have somebody below him who kind of helped, but wasn't the actual pastor. That's what a deacon is. Kind of like an elder in the church.
And that was John Bell.
And that was John Bell. Summer of 1817, members of the family start seeing some strange animals on the property.
What kind of strange animals?
Well, one day John Bell was out inspecting his cornfield, and he saw what he thought was a large black dog, except it had the head of a rabbit. It was like the head of a rabbit on a dog's body.
What?
I know, yeah. It was sitting in the middle of the corn row.
Like staring at him?
I guess, yeah.
That's
That's not really scary to me.
It's just creepy.
It's like, rabbits don't make any noise, so rabbit head that's just like weird. It's weird, and it would be like a, what the...
Yeah.
It'd be a Whiskey Tango Foxtrot moment, but it like... it wouldn't freak me. It wouldn't scare me.
Unless it stood up.
Even then, I don't think it would, even if it came, it's a rabbit's head. Rabbits are cute, and, they wiggle their nose. And then again, if you watched Monty Python and the Holy Grail, there is the rabbit in there that kills people.
There you go. It's Monty Python's rabbit.
Run away! Run away! Mm-hmm.
I don't think John Bell's saying that.
No, I don't think so. But similar to the Skinwalker Ranch, he shot it several times and it vanished. He didn't think anything more about it. This is considered to be the first manifestation of the Bell Witch.
A rabbit-head dog?
A rabbit-headed dog. And then his son also saw what he thought was a turkey, but it was huge. And I'm sorry, I'm like a massive Scooby-Doo fan. All I can think about is the episode where Jonathan Winters, who was a comedian, was a guest on the show, and he was like the grandmother and the son. Like, he voiced a couple different characters.
Is it the one with like the nasally voice?
No, I don't. Not really. And it was a giant chicken. The grandma had like a special chicken recipe, and they lived on a farm, and it was like the scarecrow monster guy, and it like this massive giant chicken comes out of the barn. It's pretty sad that I know that. So anyway, he sees this giant turkey. It's not a turkey, though. Like, when he looks at it closer, it's not a turkey. It's some sort of bird. It's huge. He doesn't even know what it is. So those are the first two weird things. And then late at night, they start hearing beating sounds on the outside doors and the outer walls of their log house. And it would increase in frequency and intensity. So they see these two weird creatures. Black dogs. I think they saw more black dogs after that, but the really weird one was the one with the rabbit head. They start hearing somebody like banging on the walls, outside walls and doors. And each night, John and his sons tried to rush outside to see what was going on, and there was never anybody there. They never could catch anybody out there doing anything. So they'd hear somebody banging on the walls and stuff outside, but never caught anybody doing anything.
That kind of peed me off after a while.
Yeah, because I wouldn't assume that would be a ghost thing. I would like them assume somebody's screwing around. But then the kids started waking up terrified, and they began hearing sounds in the house. One of them was like the sound of a rat or some animal gnawing on the bedposts. At first they thought there was an actual animal doing it, and they would look around. They never saw an animal. There were never any marks on any of the furniture at all that would indicate something chewing on it, which that's a little weird. You hear gnawing sounds that are loud enough at night for you to hear it, and there's no marks on anything. Yeah,
that's a little creepy. I also would, you pair that with the banging. So now...
Yeah, it's a little strange.
Yeah.
A little strange.
And then the dogs and all that.
Yeah, the weird creatures. And then they start hearing chains being dragged through the house, rocks being dropped on the floor, gulping, choking sounds going on. So it's increasing in intensity. After that, the kids started waking up to having the covers pulled off of them and their pillows thrown on the floor, like pulled out from underneath their heads and thrown on the floor by an invisible force. And then the beds would shake violently.
Yeah, that's not cool.
I've experienced the bed shaking thing.
Nah.
Yes.
That's
not in the Bell Witch.
No, but yeah.
But two separate occasions.
Okay.
One of them was in an aunt's house, and one of them was in my house, in a different house, not the one I'm currently in.
This was like a stupid question, but how does it feel?
Like the bed is shaking.
I knew that was coming, but like, you know what I mean? Like
when it was at my house, it woke me up, and I laid there, and I was like, did we just have an earthquake? Kind of thing, because I wasn't awake, and then it did it again after I had gotten up. And it's like the whole bed it's like something grabbed the mattress and is like violently shaking it enough to move the whole mattress. My mom also experienced it at my aunt's house.
No way.
But never shared the story until I mentioned that I had the same experience at my aunt's.
Now I have to text her about it.
Yeah, you text her about it.
I sent her a picture of my nipple, too.
Yeah, she'll appreciate that, I'm sure.
Yeah.
So then they began hearing whispering voices, but they were kind of when something's whispering and it's too low, you can't understand what it's saying. You can just tell it's something whispering. Yeah. And it sounded like a feeble old woman.
That's creepy.
Yeah, and it sounded sometimes like it was a hymn that it was singing in a way, kind of softly.
That ain't cool, bruh.
No. So at this point, I would be freaking out.
So can we move this cabin on this 320 acres somewhere else?
Seriously.
Please?
Yeah, so then it escalated, and then Betsey, she was 12 at the time that this was happening. She started enduring brutal encounters. Whatever it was would pull her hair, slap her relentlessly. She often would wake the family up screaming, and they would find her with welts and handprints on her face and body where something had hit her.
That's insane.
Yeah.
That's true.
Yeah. The family was terrified, but John Bell did not want to say anything to anybody. They wanted to keep it to themselves. He's the deacon in a church. He, back then you didn't really share any family secrets
And what is it, 1804?
1817. They moved there in 1804. This is 1817.
Yeah, I know. They probably call them witches or something, do something crazy to them.
Well, exactly. And they keep the whole thing to themselves for about a year. And so this is the beginning of the greatest American ghost story. So eventually things got so bad, John Bell didn't have any other choice but to confide in his neighbor, James Johnston, and that was their closest neighbor, but they were also very good friends, and he trusted him.
James?
Yes. And so he invited James and his wife to come visit the house and spend the night. Just get somebody else's opinion of what's going on.
So they want him, I don't know, it might be ballsy to ask this, they want him to kind of experience it maybe?
They want him to experience what's going on, I think, to validate it so that they know somebody else is witnessing it type of thing.
Okay, so
all
right, yeah.
So somebody else experiences it outside the family.
Yeah.
Would go a long way to prove it. So Johnston and his wife, they were kind of skeptical. They did opt to spend the night at the farm, and at first things were pretty peaceful. But then once they went to bed, they were subjected to the same terrifying occurrences that the Bell family were experiencing. And after their bedclothes had been ripped off of them, James was slapped. He got slapped. He leaps out of bed and he yells, "In the name of the Lord, who are you and what do you want?" Sheets and stuff are pulled off of the bed. He gets slapped. He freaks out. There's no response to his question, his yelling. And the rest of the night was quiet after that. James told the Bells the next morning that the entity was most likely an evil spirit, the kind the Bible talks about. That was his opinion. Johnston said he would help put together a group of people to investigate and try to figure out what was going on. Of course, word got out because he's kind of asking people to come check out the house, which I guess this might be one of the first paranormal groups in America.
I was going to say that. I was going to be like, Ghost Hunting 101 started here.
This is where it all began. Word gets out after he starts trying to get people to check things out, and people just start showing up at the Bell house to see what's going on.
Yeah, nah.
Because they didn't really have a whole lot to do back then. There wasn't any television. So they just start showing up to the Bell house. And at first they would gather at the house and try to communicate with the entity, asking it questions, and it would respond with taps or scratches on the wall. And then it started responding with moans, and then eventually it started responding in a feminine voice.
Nope. Not today, Satan.
So the first night it spoke, there were 24 people present, and the entity told them, "I am a spirit. I was once very happy, but I have been disturbed and made unhappy. I am the spirit of a person who was buried in the woods nearby, and the grave was disturbed. My bones disinterred and scattered, and one of my teeth was lost under this house. I am here looking for that tooth." Also, supposedly it said, "I have come to kill John Bell."
For a tooth?
I don't know, just in general.
Okay. I gotta ask.
So apparently it was, supposedly this is the spirit of somebody whose grave was disturbed.
Must be a precious tooth.
I don't know, if you were dead, resting in peace, and somebody dug you up, messed around with you, and you lost a tooth, or any part of your body, you might be pissed.
Yeah. I
Just
want
saying.
that tooth back.
The farm was huge. It was 320 acres, and that meant there were workers and there were slaves on the property. And apparently while they were plowing a field, some of the workers found a grave, did find remains, and they figured it was Indian burial area. And then they went and told John Bell, and John Bell's son, Drury, overheard, or was told, either was part of the conversation or overheard it or whatever, them talking about finding what must have been a Native American burial. So later Drury takes his buddy and they go find it and dig it up and find a jawbone, and they take it back to the house to show his dad, John Bell Sr., and John Bell gets furious with them for disturbing somebody's grave and tells them they have to go put it back. That is supposedly where the tooth got lost. When they're messing around with the jawbone, they're saying that perhaps one of the teeth in the jawbone fell out and is now under the house.
You know what you call a John Bell son?
A jerk?
No.
What?
Psychopath.
Yeah. Well, in the 1800s, there was, what were you going to do? When I was a kid...
Well, let's figure out here, Jamie.
I didn't find any bodies. But when I was a kid, there's the legend in our area that Captain John Smith, who was from Jamestown, the whole Pocahontas John Smith, he found the area near where our family has property that's near Old House Woods. And it was said that he got stung by a stingray. And when we were kids, we thought he had died and was buried on the beach. So there were times when Kelly and I were digging on this beach looking for John Smith's body. But he didn't die. Looking
for it is one thing. Playing with a jawbone is another.
I'm not saying we would not have been like, holy crap, look at this skull, and like I'm not saying we wouldn't have done that. I don't know, because we never found a body. That was disappointing. It was even more disappointing to find out later that he didn't actually die. He lived. But what had happened was they dug a grave because they thought he was going to die. But he didn't. Oh. Also, kids poke dead things with sticks. So they do.
What kids?
Ethan poked a dead fish with a stick, and then the scouts all picked it up and passed it around. I mean, I've poked dead stuff with sticks. Like skulls and stuff. Like you get a stick to flip it over and look at it or whatever. Whatever. You had a sheltered life as a kid. I poked dead things with sticks and looked for dead bodies. It was cool.
I just have a very found respect for death. I don't want to piss it off.
I don't know. It was more like being curious and interested in, anyway.
My grandma would go crazy if she heard I did something like that. She would go nuts.
Yeah, I'm not saying digging up a grave is appropriate to do. I'm just saying I can understand the curiosity of kids. If somebody told me there was an Indian graveyard and I was a younger kid, I'm not going to say that I wouldn't go looking for it.
My grandma would go, Trucker Lee, you leave them things be, okay? You don't know what comes after you later. I'm like, okay, Grandma.
I'm not saying that's not untrue. I'm just saying that when I was younger, if somebody had said or I heard there was an Indian graveyard, I can guarantee you, Kelly and I were going to be digging up that area. That's all I'm saying.
You hear the person that's involved in this party, right? Y'all two are always doing something bad.
It's not bad. We never did anything
but then y'all
really illegal.
Really illegal.
Minor trespassing.
Nobody's died, okay? Nothing was stolen.
We did get shot at once, but nobody got hit.
It was close.
I'm just saying I can understand as a kid in the 80s. I can understand back in the 80s that would have been that Indian graveyard. Let's go poke around. That's all I'm saying.
But you take poking around to a literal term. You're like, you grab that stick over there, Kelly, come on over here, let's poke this thing. Jamie likes digging up dead bodies down low. Poking them with sticks she finds from far below.
Okay, that's enough.
Okay.
Anyway, that's all I'm saying. I can understand a kid, especially then. What is there to do? It was wrong for them to pick up the jawbone and parade it around.
You know what this reminds me of? Boys in the Hood.
I've never seen that. I know, one movie.
Score one for Tim.
Score one for Tim.
But there was a dead body that everyone hears about, and they're like, there's a dead body. And a bunch of little boys were like, let's go look at the dead body.
Okay, you ever see the movie Stand By Me? I know you didn't.
Stand By Me?
Mm-hmm. Have you seen it?
With Denzel in it?
No.
Okay. Who's in it?
River Phoenix. It's about a group of boys who go off. There's a kid who apparently got killed, and his body's... They're going to find his body.
Oh, yeah.
And they're going down the railroad track.
Yes.
Oh, you've seen it.
Yes. And they're getting the leeches?
Yes.
Score 2 for Tim today, baby. Let's go!
Kelly and I were just talking about that movie and how we like rail trails because it reminds us of Stand By Me and going to look for dead bodies. We gotta get back on track because we went way off topic and talked about Pocahontas and John Smith and digging up dead things. We have a very tight schedule to keep today. Let's go.
We
do have a tight schedule.
Come on.
Okay, so anyway, Drury digs up jawbone, takes it to his dad. His dad gets ticked off.
Back and forth. Yep.
Supposedly, there is a documentary that A&E did with an apparent descendant of the Bell family who was looking into the legend. On this A&E documentary, they claim that when he must have dislodged a tooth out of that jawbone when he had it at the house showing his dad, and that is what the tooth was that this legend is referring to. Who knows? Who knows? The spirit's voice, after it talks to the 24 people in the house, the spirit's voice starts getting louder and stronger. It's unmistakable. It's singing hymns, quoting scripture, carried on intelligent conversations. It even managed to, and this is one thing, it even managed to quote 2 different sermons that were given on the same day at the same time, but 13 miles apart. And later that day, it was able to quote word for word both sermons. And it was questioned, how do you even know what we said? And they said, well, I was there. And they said, well, how do you know? Because we did these at the same time. And it said, I was there in both places. So it's now saying it can be in multiple places at once.
That's nerve-wracking.
Mm-hmm. It gained strength, and it began speaking when it was asked. It began speaking more, and when it was asked who it was and what it was, it gave different answers. It gave a different answer every time. But at one point, it said it was the name of a local woman named Kate Batts. Almost everybody believed that one. I mean, it apparently gave tons of different answers. This was just one answer that it gave.
Okay.
But Kate Batts apparently she was a woman who owned land. I don't know. Some people disliked her, I think. And so that's the one everybody decided that's who it was. Oh, it's Kate Batts. It said it was Kate Batts. Well, yeah, it said it was like 20 different people, but that's the one you honed in on. And I think similarly to the Salem witch trials, a lot of the women who were in the Salem witch trials were women who were property owners or outspoken, and women weren't supposed to be like that.
Yeah.
And so they got targeted. I think this is a similar situation. I think she was outspoken. I think she was a businesswoman. I think she was a property owner. And I don't think that was looked on very highly.
I was about to ask you, I was like, 1817, 1820, it's very rare for a woman to own anything.
Yeah, pretty much their husband ended up with it. And I can tell you that, like, if a woman's husband died, she would inherit items of his or property, but only if she stayed a widow. If she remarried, then any property she owned from her first husband would revert to his other heirs. I know this because I've read a million different court cases doing genealogy. But that's how things worked back then. You only retained the inheritance of your deceased husband as long as you didn't remarry. Pretty crappy in my opinion.
That's pretty crappy how they looked at women, period.
Yeah, so that's why I think they picked her. So they referred to it as the Bell Witch was Kate Batts. I don't think that's who it was at all.
Well, the A&E thing definitely proved that wrong.
Yeah, the A&E show did bring up a lot of points. This is an entity, supposedly, and Kate Batts, she outlived John Bell. So if she's not dead, how is she haunting a house?
That's true.
Because they call it a witch, but it's not really a witch. This is a haunting. This isn't a witch type thing.
Correct.
Just to explain all that, but that's what it's called, is the Bell Witch. I think because they said it was Kate Batts, but it's not her.
Okay.
So this one time, this self-proclaimed witch tamer comes to the farm, saying that he could get rid of the witch for him.
Okay. So a witch tamer.
A witch tamer. He's going to get rid of the witch for him.
Okay.
And while he was there, things actually settled down. And allegedly, the family offered him money to stay on the farm because things had settled down, everything had chilled out, and they thought the witch was gone for good. But then he went to leave the property for some reason, and the horse refused or was unable to move. And then all of a sudden, he tried tons of things to make the horse move. I think he pretty much beat the horse to try to make it move.
Right.
It refused or it couldn't move. And then all of a sudden they hear the voice say, I can make that horse go. I'll get on behind. And the horse freaks out. All of a sudden just freaks out, starts running off with the witch tamer hanging on, screaming, and he never came back. Yeah. I've had a horse take off on me. Not because a witch jumped on behind, but...
You sure? Because I heard a faceplant story that you told me the other day. It was pretty serious.
I've fallen off of horses, too. This is the same horse, by the way. This is after we got him. Yeah. I'm actually on the horse, and he's taking off with me, and I'm screaming to my mother as he's racing around, and she's like, pull back! Sit down in the saddle and pull back! And then it was fine, and I stopped him. But I'm just saying that it's a little crazy when a horse takes off with terrified running with you.
Oh, you mean a 2,000-pound animal just takes off, you know.
Yeah. And you feel like you have no control. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, anyway, he never came back.
You know that horse probably weighed more than my car?
No, it depends on the type of horse.
We'll get into that a different day.
Yeah. Depends on the
So
time.
the horse takes off. Homeboy's screaming.
Horse takes off. He never comes back. He's gone.
Peace out, pansy.
Yep. Not much of a witch tamer.
Nope.
But then again, it wasn't a witch, in my opinion.
Okay, now we're getting into something.
So then a family friend named William Porter, he claimed that when he was staying at the house one night that the witch climbed into bed with him.
Whoa!
And that allowed him the opportunity to seize the spirit in the bedclothes, and he attempted to throw it into the fire, saying only the immense weight and the terrible smell of it prevented him from succeeding. So he said that it got into the bed, he used the sheets and everything to wrap it up really quick, and picked it up and went to throw it in the fire, but it weighed so much and smelled so bad that prevented him from actually following through with throwing it in.
Bullshit.
Yeah, I know. Whatever. That was pretty funny. So the word began to really spread well past the town of Adams. And It actually reached Nashville. And that's where General Andrew Jackson finally heard about it. And he became interested. He may or may not be related to me. I haven't figured that out yet. But his whole attitude in this makes me think he's totally related to me. But, there's no proof. There were different things I read. And I'm just like, yeah, well, that might be genetic. So John Bell Jr. and his brother Drury actually, and their brother Jesse fought under General Jackson in the Battle of New Orleans, which was January 1815. And it was 4 years later, 1819, that Jackson learned about what was going on in the house. And he decided to pay him a visit so he could investigate. So it was General Jackson, several men, horses, a large wagon with provisions. They're nearing the property and the wagon stopped suddenly. And supposedly it was stuck in some mud. The horses weren't able to pull it. They couldn't get it to move at all. They'd take the wheels off, mess around with it. It could not get this wagon to move at all. It was not going anywhere. So they just figured it's stuck in the mud. After several minutes, General Jackson exclaims, "By the eternal, boys, that must be the Bell Witch." At which time, a disembodied female voice told Jackson, "All right, General, let the wagon move. See you tonight." And then they were able to move the wagon.
Okay.
And then they made their way to the Bell home. And that evening, Jackson told war stories while his men set up tents on the property, and they stayed up late into the early morning hours, trying to find something going on. They also, a member of his men, claimed to be like a witch hunter. He had a gun with a silver bullet. He could kill the witch and all this other stuff. When they were staying up all night, this guy kept boasting about his abilities, going on and on and on about how he could take care of the witch and blah, blah, blah. He's showing him his pistol with the silver bullet. It can kill any evil spirit. He claimed that because nothing was going on at that time. He claimed nothing was happening because the Bell Witch was so afraid of him.
Okay.
And it was scared of him and his silver bullet. So General Jackson says to one of the men, "I'll bet he's an arrant coward. I do wish the thing would come. I want to see him run." Which was one of the things I thought, yeah, that's genetic. Because I would totally be like, I hope it scares the crap out of him. I had said that before. Yeah. After Jackson says this, they hear something kind of shuffling around on the floor near General Jackson. And a voice says, "All right, General, I'm here and ready for business." And then right after that, the witch hunter shoots towards the direction that the voice came from. Nothing happens, of course. So he shoots again. There's no result. That's when all hell breaks loose, basically. The witch says that now it's her turn and starts beating the man. Apparently he had a large nose. She grabs him by his nose, chasing him out the front door. He runs out the front door and keeps on running. So the entity at this point is ticked off about the whole thing and makes a comment that there's another fraud within Jackson's party. Makes a comment that there's another person who is a fraud within the men and that she would identify him the following evening. So Jackson's men are terrified and they're ready to go home. But Jackson doesn't want to leave the property because he wants to see who the other fraud is. So they finally go back to their tents. They said they were going to stay because he wanted to see who the fraud was. But early the next morning, they're seen in Springfield and headed back to Nashville. And some allege that Jackson later said, "I would rather fight the British at New Orleans than fight the Bell Witch." So something else must have happened at some point to make him leave because he had planned on staying because he wanted to see who the witch revealed as the other fraud.
I wouldn't want to stay either.
There were, like I said, slaves on the property. It's the 1800s. It's a large farm. He's well-to-do. There are slaves. I'm not condoning the practice. So one slave in particular named Dean was subjected to the witch's antics quite a bit. And he, for whatever reason, was a target of the haunting. Now, he had actually been with John Bell and his wife Lucy since their wedding, because apparently he was gifted to them as a wedding present.
Which is common practice.
It is.
Common practice. Back then it is.
Yes.
Back then.
Yes. Perhaps that's why he was a target. I don't know. I'm just saying he was with the family for a long time.
Okay.
So he was also a target, and he was married to another slave named Kate. Not the same Kate.
Not Kate Batts.
His wife Kate made him what's called a witch ball, which is like a talisman, and it's got herbs, and she put locks of her hair, which are said to be powerful and warding off things like that. And he carried it with him. And one night, he said he ran into the witch that came to him in the form of a black dog, which isn't surprising. I know I said witch.
Yep.
And he said that it told him it knew he had the witch ball and it wanted it. And it demanded that he turn it over. So he threw it at the witch dog, whatever. And the ball burst into flames and shot into the air. Dean then, he carried an axe with him. He used an axe and split the creature's head in two. Okay? That's important. I only put it in there because it is important for this next part. So his wife made him another witch ball and actually allegedly consulted with a Native American shaman, made him another witch ball. And again, he encountered the witch, showed up as a dog, only this time it had two heads. Like the first one had its head split in two. That's why the axe thing was important.
I'm just going to put this out there.
Mm-hmm.
So this thing clearly has mythical powers. Mystical powers, as you saw it do with the ball. So the first thing you think is, let's swing an axe at it.
Well, if it's the witch taking the form of an animal, perhaps you could kill it. I mean, it's a good theory. I mean, it's not like, even today, I don't know if you would know how to kill it.
Yeah, that's the point.
Back then, but that doesn't mean people haven't tried different things. Back then, I mean, logically, you have an axe. It's something that's threatening you. You hit it with the axe. I mean, I'm just like, it's a logical thing to think of.
You know, I hear you, Jamie. I hear you, but then you got crap like this, okay?
But then
it shows back up.
It shows back up with two heads.
Yeah, it's like, hey, you didn't swing hard enough the first time, big boy.
Right. That's right. So this time, it tried to turn Dean into a mule, and he couldn't move. Some of the stories say they actually turned him into a mule, but I don't think so. I think he was unable to move.
That's a shizzy witch ball, then.
Yeah. So then, yeah. So then, this is the other interesting thing. A second voice speaks and says to the other one, "Let's ride him to have breakfast in hell." Apparently, he broke free, and it was said that he broke free because he was thinking about his wife and how much he loved her and wanting to get to her, and that's what allowed him to break free from the witch's spell.
Well, I mean, you got immense evil, you got love and passion. Maybe there's something there. Maybe.
Or maybe it's all cockamamie story. I don't know.
You said cockamamie.
I said cockamamie.
You're keeping that in, aren't you?
Yeah, I am.
God dang it.
Really, I mean, there were other things going on with other people, but the person that really honed in on at this point in time was Betsey, their daughter. And she would have seizures she would go unconscious, and then she'd wake up and it would start again. And that would go on for like 40 minutes, where she'd have a seizure, lose consciousness, come back to, have another seizure, lose consciousness, back and forth. And they tried to send her to a friend's house, but the entity would just follow her. There is one account when she has an account here she actually wrote down. She says, "When the spirit became so tantalizing, filling my mind with horror and causing me to become so nervous, my parents often sent me to a neighbor's to rest for the night. My first night away from home was spent with Fenny Thorne. When we retired, there came a loud knocking on our outside door, which seemed to fly open, and a great gust of wind was felt. Fenny sprang up at once and lit a candle. To our surprise, the door was not open. Then a voice spoke softly. 'Betsey, you should not have come over here. You know I can follow you anywhere. Now get a good night's sleep.' A soft hand patted my cheek, and the voice again assured us that we would not be disturbed any more that night."
What?
She's at her friend's house.
Yeah, but it doesn't even make any sense, because wasn't it just like terrorizing her?
At her house it was, but basically was making, this is her first night, they send her away. She goes to her friend's house. They feel this sound like the door burst open and a giant wind came in. The door's not open. And then a voice says, hey, I can come anywhere you are. Sleep well. Like she's going to sleep at all. The thing that she's running away from her house has now followed her to somebody else's house, pats her cheek, tells her, get a good night's sleep. You're not safe no matter where you go. That's the point.
That makes sense now.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Mm-hmm. So the rest of the family often attempted to give Betsey relief, and a family friend named Frank Miles promised to protect Betsey from any further abuse by the spirit. Betsey said, Frank was the most powerful man any of us ever saw, and just as fearless as any living man. One time he said to me, come sit by me, little sister. Nothing will bother you while I'm here. The witch responded, you go home. You can do no good here. The witch then began abusing Betsey, slapping her, pulling her hair, before turning on Miles, knocking him over, and enraging him.
So, it sounds like every time someone says, it's not going to do this, it comes tenfold. Like, it comes harder to make a point.
You ever watched a ghost show where the people on the show antagonize the spirits that are there, and then all of a sudden crap starts happening? There you go. That's something I won't ever do.
Yeah, and that's the thing I'm trying to figure out here. It's like
they're antagonizing it.
Yeah, you're basically like best way is that you're poking a bear. I guess
like
the best
if I
way
were to say to the spirit in the room here,
no,
I won't. I won't.
Yeah, no.
I just wanted to see your reaction.
Nope, you stay over there. You're great in the girls' bathroom.
I just wanted to see what you would do.
Don't come on this side. Stay over there, please. Thank you.
Yeah, I don't believe in
Don't be doing that
I
shit.
don't believe in antagonizing.
You hear me?
All.
None of that shit happens
I was
here.
just joking.
Okay?
I don't do that. I don't agree with
if those things start jingling and stuff starts getting thrown, I'm going to tell you this right now, I'm a hell of a lot faster to get out of that bathroom.
Anyway, so despite its torment of so many people, for whatever reason, Lucy Bell, who is the mom, John Bell Sr.'s wife.
Correct.
It likes Lucy. It proclaims Lucy to be the most perfect woman living.
That's a little creepy.
Yeah. And it was very compassionate towards her. Apparently she got very ill for several days and hadn't eaten anything. And one day, hazelnuts and grapes start raining down from the ceiling. There are people there to witness this going on.
Hazelnuts come from the ceiling.
Hazelnuts and grapes falling from the ceiling. And the people who were there said there were no holes in the ceiling, nothing, no place they could have been hidden or anything like that to cause it to happen. And it told her to eat them.
Can I ask a weird question?
Yes.
Why hazelnuts?
I don't know.
Okay. I'm just asking.
I'm sure they were found in the area.
Well, that's my thing. Like, do they have some, like, remedy to them? You know what I mean? Like, make you feel better?
I'm not that I am aware of. But it told her to eat them, and she did, and within a few days started to improve in health.
Okay.
So just throwing that there, she was a real witch to everybody else, but treated Lucy compassionately.
I heard John Bell didn't treat her very well.
I don't know. I didn't really see much on that, but again, not surprising.
That's true, given the time.
By fall, John Bell Sr.'s health had declined to the point that he was confined to the house, pretty much. And it would violently remove his shoes when he tried to walk, slap him in the face, and the voice could be heard all over the farm cursing old Jack Bell. That's what the nickname was. That's what the witch called him. So he died on December 20th, 1820, after going into a coma. And his family's in his room, and they found a vial of strange black liquid where his usual medicine was, and it wasn't his medicine. And his son had been taking care of him, and it was not like the same bottle he had been using to give him medicine and everything. So they put a couple of drops of this stuff on the cat's tongue, and the cat basically died almost immediately.
And that's pretty common practice when you want to see if something's poison or not. You give it to a small animal.
Yeah. The entity said, I gave old Jack a big dose of that last night, which fixed him.
So the ghost, or the witch killed him.
Apparently. So John Jr. threw the bottle of stuff into the fire, and it was said to have burst into a bright blue flame. Some say it was like a purplish flame. Interestingly enough, arsenic will burn blue, the same color as was described.
Yep.
Also on the A&E documentary. Yep. They actually had a scientist who showed them.
Who was very smart.
Yeah. Not Travis Taylor smart.
Oh, Travis Taylor.
Anyway, let's not get off topic. So John Sr.'s funeral was one of the largest ever in the area. He was a well-to-do, well-known, had been a deacon of the church, but apparently had been excommunicated from the church.
Why?
No idea. It didn't say. It was in the show also. They didn't really say.
Maybe because his proclaims of the witch.
I don't know, because other people in the community witnessed it. It wasn't just him going on and on that he was having this problem. There were other prominent people who had experiences as well. So I don't think that would be the reason.
Okay.
So anyway, his funeral's one of the biggest, and for the most part, the entity stayed quiet through most of the funeral, except near the end when it began singing bawdy drinking songs. One of them was Roll Me Up Some Brandy-O, and it sang these bawdy drinking songs, pub songs, until the last guest left. All I gotta say is that's pretty much how my funeral's gonna be the whole time.
No, it ain't.
As just a bunch of people singing Irish drinking songs, because that's really how I want to go.
Nope.
That's how I want to go, literally.
I'm gonna walk around with the recorder and be like, Jamie, you got anything else you want to say before you go?
And I'll be like, whiskey in the jar.
Like, fire up the band!
So, Betsey had become engaged to a neighbor boy, and the entity didn't really approve of it, so to speak. It followed the couple around constantly, said not to marry him, said bad things about him, would come out and say things about, the two of them to other people, just constantly tormented them to the point where she finally called off the engagement. Easter Monday, 1821, she called off the engagement. And she ended up marrying her old school teacher, Richard Powell.
Creepy.
And the abuse by the entity stopped after she broke off the engagement with her neighbor. I think this was a trick. I think the entity, because it would tell her, like, she's going to be miserable for the rest of her life and all this other stuff. She actually ended up being miserable with the person she married.
So basically it was like pushing her to be
I think it
miserable.
Was pushing her to be miserable.
Yep. That sounds about right.
I think she would have been... the man she had been engaged to ended up being like a sheriff, a county sheriff where he moved, and he was well off, lived a long life, and the life she lived was... She had several of her children die early, and then her husband invested their money in a ship, and the ship sank, and they lost all their money. So... didn't have a very good life. So the entity said farewell, said it would be back in 7 years, and it did return 7 years later to John Jr.'s home, where it made several predictions about the future. And some of the predictions included the Civil War, World War I, World War II, the Great Depression, and said that the earth would end in a great fire. So that's something to look forward to.
Okay.
Since we've already been through all the other things.
Okay.
It's still blamed for things in the area. People say they hear faint sounds of people talking. Children playing can be heard. Candle lights are seen in the fields. There's also a cave located on the property that was part of the Bell property, and it's called the Bell Witch Cave, said to be where the Bell Witch went to when it was finished with the Bell family. And a psychic who visited the cave said that it was a portal and that there wasn't just one spirit, but hundreds in the cave.
Okay, now I'm thinking of stuff. Okay, we're going to wait till the end.
Okay.
Wait till the end.
The first room of the cave actually has the tomb of a Native American girl was dated to the late 1700s to early 1800s. She was killed by a gunshot, and somebody actually stole her body from her tomb.
Why,
from
though?
the cave. I don't know. I don't know exactly when it was stolen, but somebody took it.
That's just fucking creepy.
Yeah. The unexplained activity in and around the Bell Farm in Adams, Tennessee still continues. There's various encounters near the property, along the old Nashville-Clarksville Road, and in the famous Bell Witch Cave, which draws tourists and ghost hunters. The Bell Witch has been the subject of countless modern books, analysis, documentaries, and movies. An American Haunting, which was a 2006 motion picture, was loosely based on the Bell Witch.
Really?
Apparently, loosely. That usually means not really.
Okay.
When they say loosely based, it means it bears no resemblance at this point.
Okay.
They may have started with that, but it ended up being...
It started so strong.
That's usually what loosely... That's usually what loosely means. So, apparently, even though the Bell family... The haunting of the Bell family ended almost 200 years ago, tales of the Bell Witch are as compelling in 2009 as they were in 1819, because it's still talked about quite a bit.
So it definitely left its mark on the area.
Yeah. There was an article about the psychic that was featured on that A&E documentary. That documentary was called Cursed, the Bell Witch. That was the name of the It was like a docu-series is the term.
There's a picture of a girl screaming on the front.
Yeah, she claims the Bells weren't cursed, the land was cursed. And in disturbing the land, that's what set things in motion. I think that's completely... I think that's believable.
Oh, that's believable.
No, I believe that's 100% believable. If they had property, they already said that they had found burial graves and Native Americans were in the area. I think that's 100% accurate.
Okay.
She also claims that the Bell Witch did not kill John Bell. A slave killed John Bell because he couldn't protect Betsey from being sexually abused by another family member when she was 11.
Okay.
That's basically the Bell Witch in a nutshell, a hazelnut shell.
Wow.
See how I tied that in there? See what I did there?
How you tied that?
I did. I just thought that all by myself.
That was just a nutty one you did.
It wasn't even written down. This is my thought on just what I mentioned with the alleged sexual abuse. That actually came up in the documentary as well. That was something that was not a secret, really.
So you believe that it was sexual abuse?
Well,
he was excommunicated for a reason. Okay.
He was. I don't know that he was the one. There was also apparently a dispute, a property dispute, which could have been the excommunication thing. I don't really know why he got kicked out of the church.
Okay.
I don't know. But there was mention of the sexual abuse claims. And I'm just going to put out there that poltergeist type activity, which some of this, the knockings, the rappings, the noises, oftentimes are associated with girls Betsey's age at the time. Prepubescent girls. It's a hard word to say. So preteens.
Yeah.
You know, they're kind of at a point in their life where their bodies are changing. And it's almost like the thought is that they are manifesting the activity because of all the changes going on. There's a lot of, if she were sexually abused at that same age, there's a lot of emotional trauma. I'm not saying that I believe that. I'm just saying that there are studies about this type of activity and it being associated with girls her age, and that perhaps that is where it came from. But the voices and things like that obviously wouldn't be associated with that.
Correct.
But I think there is something to that claim that was going on. I don't think a witch killed John Bell.
No, I definitely think Betsey did
I don't
that.
think a ghost. I don't think Betsey did it.
You
I don't
Betsey
know
did
that Betsey did it. Well, this says a slave killed. The psychic claims that a slave killed John Bell because he knew about the sexual abuse that happened that nothing was done about.
I mean, that could be it.
All I'm saying is they had slaves that were with that family for a long time and would have seen the kids grow up. And I definitely don't think Kate Batts had anything to do with it.
Kate Batts is definitely
That's just...
I think the land is cursed, though. I think the land is cursed dramatically, and I think it was left good enough alone until they messed with burial sites. And I think, given the history of burial sites, especially Indian burial sites, anytime someone messes with anything like that, there is major repercussions, not just for the family, but for years to come after them. So I think that it was something along the line of they messed with an Indian burial ground, maybe several, because they used the land. They plowed the land and things like that in 1817, or that's when he started experiencing things. I mean, he's probably worked the land for so many years. You know, he's probably disturbed a lot of things, either A, unintentionally, just not knowing about it, or B, maybe he knew about it and he was just trying to keep it under wraps for a period of time.
I think I lean more towards unintentional because the one account said that the workers came across it and they told him, they stopped and they told him, and he seemed to be respectful. Like he got ticked off with his son for digging it up and disrespecting it. So I think it was not an intentional thing. 320 acres. Back then, if you're in Native American land, I would think it would be difficult to not find something on your property. I mean, that's a lot of acreage. Yeah. That's almost as much acreage as the Skinwalker Ranch. Skinwalker was like 485. So 160 acres more than this. So still, that's a huge piece of property.
I would just like to have 3 acres.
I'd like 5 at least.
I would love 5, but then I got to cut it.
You get goats.
I don't like goats. I'll get a cow.
That too. I want one of those too.
I love a cow. I'll get a cow and name it Rhonda. Whoa. All right, so long story short here. Family curse, yes or no?
I think they had the experience because of the land. I think the land was cursed, but it did follow Betsey. Supposedly, Betsey had some things that happened to her afterwards, but whether it was the Bell Witch or she just had a miserable life because of her choice in husband, who was like quite a bit older than her.
Just seems like a great guy. Definitely land's cursed. Land's definitely cursed. I think that if they probably somehow brought a shaman or someone on to kind of like smooth things over, I think they would end up having to sell and move eventually. But yeah, land's cursed. So, would that conclude Bell Witch?
I think that puts a pin in it.
I love Bell Witch. Anyways, Jamie, go ahead, put a bow on it for us.
As always, you can find us on your favorite podcasting platform. And you can always find us at lurkpodcast.com, which has episodes and links to our social media, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. As always, we recommend that you like one of those to see any photos that has anything to do with what we're talking about, or sometimes has nothing to do with what we've talked about and just random things that I decide to post. We also have merch. You can find
merch.
You can find the link pinned at the top of our Facebook page. It's also in the show notes, and the show notes have links to any resources that I have used that you can find easily or that I've remembered to write down. I know sometimes I look at so many websites sometimes or whatever that it's...
I think you're okay.
Plus some of it comes from my own memory.
We need to make a website that just says Jamie Brain.
Yeah, that would be just a mess. So that's it.
Alrighty, well, as always,
keep lurking.